What's up, guys? This is Technical Tim here, and this is my first video that I'm going to be doing. I plan on doing a few videos a week. Some will be 5 minutes long, some will be a minute long, some might be an hour long. I might break down the entire upcoming card, I might recap a previous card, I might just talk about one fight. I haven't really decided, but if you guys have any advice about it or any recommendations, let me know, and I'll definitely listen to what you all have to say. But follow me on Twitter if you don't already, or subscribe to the channel. I just started this, so I might have 0 fucking subscribers right now. So if you're number 1, that's cool. But yeah, I plan on just kind of building a lot of videos on here and sharing the knowledge that I have. I come from a wrestling background, so that's usually something I have an advantage of, going against other handicappers. I usually can tell when a takedown is going to happen or not, and I can tell if somebody will be able to hold someone down. So that's the main advantage I've had, but I've developed other skills over the last few years as I've been betting MMA. And yeah, my Bet MMA profile, that tracks all my picks. So you can see how I've been doing this year as well on there. And yeah, if you have any questions, let me know, but let's get right to it. Let's get to UFC Nashville. I'm going to talk about 3 fights here. I'm going to talk about 2 stay-away fights and why I believe they're stay-away fights, just in case if a couple of you are on these people or betting these 2 fights already, just to maybe give you a warning. But if you have a better read than me, definitely play it. I mean, I could definitely be wrong. You might have a better read than me. And then I'm going to also talk about a fight that I am going to be putting a wager on and that I'm confident in. So let's get to it. The first stay-away fight is, in my opinion, Bryce Mitchell and Bobby Moffitt. And looking at this fight, I think it will mostly end up on the floor because Moffitt prefers to grapple. I mean, he always engages in offensive takedowns. And Mitchell tends to he's kind of a freestyle fighter. He'll kind of just fight where the fight goes, but I do think he tends to grapple as well. He prefers to grapple, and he's comfortable grappling there. And he usually ends up on the mat, and I think if Moffitt just starts engaging, which I assume he will, it's just going to kind of end up into a pretty long grappling fight and a competitive grappling fight too. On the feet, I do think Mitchell is a little better and a little more athletic and kind of throws more power into his punches, but I think this is mostly going to end up on the floor. I also think Mitchell's probably has a higher ceiling here, but that doesn't really matter because we're betting on who's going to win the fight now. But in a heavy grappling fight, a principle that I like to use and something that I tend to go off of is I tend to favor the man who's going to be on top more. And I think Bobby Moffitt, his get-up game is a little better, and he's not complacent off his back. So the fact that he's just not complacent off his back and he kind of works his way up to his feet a little better than Mitchell makes me think he'll probably be the guy with a little more top time. Mitchell will get very complacent off his back and throw up guard subs and kind of just accept position sometimes, and you don't really see Bobby Moffitt doing that as much. So I think that's one reason why I tend to favor Moffitt. I mean, maybe Mitchell shows a little more urgency and gets his get-up games going a little more. But based off what we've seen so far, I tend to think that Mitchell's more complacent to be on his back than Moffitt. And the other reason why I probably give a slight edge in this fight to Bobby Moffitt is we know Bobby Moffitt has a really good Darce choke. And something I saw on tape that this is very common in wrestlers, and I looked, and Mitchell has a wrestling background in Arkansas, so it makes sense because he definitely has some folk style wrestling. And if you don't know what folk style wrestling is, that's American wrestling. If you're not from America, that's kind of the brand of wrestling we specialize in over here. But Mitchell will shoot a single or double leg, And what you're taught in wrestling is whenever someone sprawls on you and you miss your takedown opportunity, you need to scramble up to your feet immediately and not allow someone to start getting a front headlock in. A front headlock is kind of, you get on top of them and you can grab like an arm in their head and you kind of hold position a little bit. It kind of, you see it all the time in MMA. Most of you probably know what I'm talking about. But that front headlock position is what Moffitt likes to do, and that can open up a Darce opportunity for him. So that's another reason why I get a little scared if I would be playing Mitchell, and I'm just going to stay away from the fight altogether. But that's another reason. And not only could he get a Darce choke opportunity, if you sit on all fours like Mitchell tends to do after he fails a takedown attempt, he could just take his back and get more control time or possibly get a rear naked choke. And we've seen him rear naked choke before against Brad Katona. Talking about Mitchell here. So that's why I tend to lean Moffitt here. But I also think Mitchell is good enough and well-rounded enough and scrappy enough and a good enough offensive wrestler himself that he could still win this fight, I think. But I just think it's really close, and I tend to just slightly favor Moffitt. So I don't see why people are so passionate either way on either guy. I think they're both fully capable of winning, but I do think Moffitt has slight advantages. But I just see it as kind of a whatever fight and nothing to sweat over and no reason to bet on that fight. So that's one. The next stay away fight that I'm going to talk about is Curtis Blaydes over Justin Willis. And originally, whenever I was kind of in the early stages of taping, I tended to lean Willis because, I mean, he's a big underdog right now. I think he's like plus 230 or something. I haven't looked at the line for a few hours, but he's got good striking, and Blaydes isn't that good of a striker. Blaydes just kind of throws a jab and overhand in a straight right, and he doesn't have much defense. He's very hittable, and as a southpaw, Willis tends to counter well off his left hand, and his left hand's really fast. So I could see him having a lot of success on the feet and maybe even hurting Blaydes, to be honest. But then I wanted to look into the wrestling, obviously, a little more of Justin Willis. We know Blaydes, and even though I don't think Blaydes is a very good wrestler, he is good for heavyweight. But all he shoots is a blast double, but it's good enough to take out 95% of the heavyweight division because a lot of them just aren't that skilled. But he just blasts a double, shoots a blast double, shoots a blast double, shoots a blast double. That's all he really does. And I didn't know if Willis was a good defensive wrestler because we've never seen it in the UFC. We've seen him offensive wrestle a little bit, and you can sometimes make an assumption that someone's defensive wrestling is probably competent if their offensive wrestling is competent. And I do think off the footage I saw, Willis's offensive wrestling was somewhat competent. And usually a double leg is the easiest thing to stop. It's usually single legs that give people issues. Look at Damian Maia and Ronnie Yaya. They're dominating people because they shoot a single leg, and that's all they shoot. And it gets people off balance, and they don't know how to stop it. But you can just be athletic and have just good understanding of balance and timing and stop a double leg pretty easily. But single leg it takes a lot more skills and balance and understanding of leverage. So I saw that he was only shooting double legs, Blaydes, so I kind of thought Willis would maybe be able to stop it. And then I looked into it, and I'll put this video into the description box, or you can just search it. It's called like Buff's First Pro Fight. I think if you just type in Justin Willis MMA as well, you can find it. But it's a video of a documentary called Fight Factory, and it is a documentary that American Kickboxing Academy in San Jose, California was putting together in like 2011, 2012, 2013 to kind of document what was going on in their camp. And Willis's first pro fight is on there, and he loses it via elbows on the ground. And you don't get to see the entire fight on the clip, but what you do get to see in the second round, Willis looks pretty tired, and he did gas very, very hard against Chase Sherman and drop that third round to Chase Sherman, which makes me think he doesn't have that much of a decision opportunity against Blades, because Blades can push a pace even though he's not very good. That's one thing he can do well, is that he got taken down in that second round on that clip that I'll be sending around, and he had no idea what to do. And I know it was a really, really long time ago, but it's all we have to go off of. And generally, heavyweights don't improve wrestling all that well late into their adulthood. So and certainly he probably didn't get his defensive wrestling on par with a blast double from Curtis Blades. And it looks like it won't even take, it'll probably just take one takedown to really put Willis into a lot of trouble by Blades. And even if he stops a few, Blades attempted 10 versus Mark Hunt. So he's going to be persistently shooting. So it makes me think he's going to get him there that one at some point. And Willis will be tired at one point. I mean, even though that clip of him getting out wrestled in that Fight Factory thing that I'm going to be sending you, even though it was a really long time ago, it was only 2 fights ago when he gassed really hard versus Chase Sherman, and he was even getting out clinched at the end. So it just makes me think he's going to get fucked up late. And I wanted to let you guys know, because a lot of people haven't seen that Fight Factory clip, and it's really the only illustration we have of Justin Willis's defensive wrestling and his game off his back. So I thought I'd share that with you. Now I'm going to get to one more fight. The third fight I'm kind of breaking down in this short little series of video here is Macy Barber and JJ Aldrich. And I am going to be playing Macy Barber. And I've seen a lot of people on Aldrich, and they're kind of fading Barber, but I disagree. I know Barber's not amazing, but a lot of women MMA fighters aren't. But the thing is, she excels very, very well at two things, and that's her clinch game and her top game. And she can even pound you out from half guard in her top game. And if you have two things you do really, really fucking well, and you're not particularly bad anywhere, you're going to crush girls. And in this fight, the only success I can see Aldrich having and her path to victory is perimeter striking. Just if they're just kind of like at a neutral striking situation, and she's just kind of picking her off with distance shots, picking off Barber. But even there, Barber throws a lot of kicks and her hands are improving. Her hands aren't that great, and she is hittable at times, but her kicks are really good. And I think just with that alone, she'll be able to rack up volume. And Aldrich doesn't even throw that many strikes. She throws like 3.5 strikes per minute. And although small sample size, Barber throws a lot more than that. So I think, so even at distance in a perimeter striking battle, JJ Aldrich, I think even she's at a disadvantage there. And in the clinch, she's going to get dominated. Barber uses really, really good underhook position, and the first line of defense you have in a clinch situation is head position, and she uses head position really well. And if you look, I think it was Juliana Pena. I think that was her against JJ Aldrich. It was Juliana something. In their fight, she was dominating Aldrich in the clinch and getting takedowns at times. And Barber doesn't have the best takedowns, but I think they're kind of raw athletic enough to probably get her down and pound her out. But I think she's just going to batter her in the clinch, and she's going to also dominate Aldrich on the floor. So I just don't see enough ways Aldrich has to win to justify betting her at her current line of like plus 200, which implies she wins 33% of the time. And I don't see her winning 1 out of 3 times. I think the odds should probably be Barber about minus 400. So I think I got her at minus 220. So I think there was a lot of value in that line. And even at like plus or minus 250, which she is now, I think there's probably even value there, but the line might get better. So I would monitor that if I were you guys. But I don't play favorites a lot, but I don't think we should be scared to play one here, because in women's MMA, flash finishes don't happen as much. unless if they're submissions, and Aldrich isn't really a submission threat. And her decision path is going to be really, really hard here because she can only really rack up points in the perimeter, where she'll probably be racking up less points. And Macy just has way more to her game to score from an offensive standpoint. And she also is just very tenacious and aggressive and will always be the aggressor. So whenever you just wrap all those things up, I think she wins this fight about 4 out of 5 times, and maybe even more, to be honest. So I don't think you should be afraid to play Macy here. And I do think you should stay away from the Justin Willis fight and the Mitchell Moffitt fight. So thanks for listening. If you want to buy my picks, I put my Bet MMA profile in there so you can get my picks for the rest of the card. It's not a great card for betting, but I do have a few plays. So if you have any questions, comments, comment below. Thanks for listening. Bye.